Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us. Today, we're discussing a topic that has become increasingly important across Ireland, adolescent obesity and the complex physical and psychological factors behind it. And I am absolutely delighted to be joined by Clare Murray, teen psychotherapist from Zest Life, who works directly with adolescents. And together, we're going to explore the physical and psychological drivers behind adolescent weight gain. We're going to explore how sleep, stress, and hormones influence metabolism, the emerging conversation around weight loss injections, and most importantly, what safe long-term support for teenagers actually looks like. So rather than a traditional presentation, we're going to structure this session as an open panel discussion. So you'll be able to hear both the medical and psychological perspectives throughout. But before we begin, here is a quick poll that we'd love for you to answer so that we understand our audience better. And for us all as parents, I'm a parent to 3 adolescent girls, and Claire's also a parent. So I think it's nice for us to share also our concerns. And we will, if you want to, that poll will pop up for you. If you want to answer the poll, we've asked what concerns you most about your teenagers. Is it their weight or their eating habits? Is it their confidence or self-esteem? Is it emotional well-being, such as stress, anxiety, and mood? Or is it lack of motivation, resistance to change, for example? Or are you not sure what the root cause is or the issue is? The first question, many parents, for example, feel like adolescent weight issues have escalated in recent years, we're finding. So from the clinical side, we're seeing that around 1 in 4 adolescents in Ireland are now living with overweight or obesity, alongside increasing metabolic conditions. From your work, Clare, with teenagers, what changes have you noticed in how young people experience weight and body image today, for example?
Thanks, Aisling. Yeah, well, I really feel for young people today. I'm sure any of us who have come through that and are on the other side of that can say body image has always been an issue. You know, it's something that we've all had to grapple with. It's part of figuring out who we are because it's kind of the shell that we present ourselves to in the world. So grappling with how we see ourselves and whether we like ourselves has always kind of been there. But at the moment, I'm sure we can all see it's just constant. It's this constant ability to be on show, or this feeling, even if it's not real, of I need to be perfect. I need to be ready to be, on show for someone to take a picture and post it. Or, I'm also constantly looking at all these people looking perfect and seeing these bodies. If they're doing it all the time, then maybe I should. And it just gets really, really hard. It's not contained the way it was when even I was in school, when you're comparing to your friends and maybe the girls on your road or the boys on your road. It's now kind of the whole world. So that's a change. And then that, along with the kind of phone use and kind of, the constant sort of looking outside of ourselves into another world, just creates this, what I would say is, there's a real externalized sense of yourself. Like who I am is how I look to other people. Who I am isn't how I feel and what I think and what my dreams are and like what I like. Who I am is what you think about me. And that just creates this real emptiness and loneliness when we don't know who we are. And I really hear that from the young people that I'm talking to, that when I ask them about themselves, they have no idea what they want or like what it means to live a really good, deep life. It's really hard to have that separate to, I need to look perfect. I need to look like the ideal, that kind of external view of ourselves. Like any of us feel that when we look at ourselves from the outside and when we just see ourselves as what we look like, it just leaves an empty person in here who still has emotions, still has cues, still has needs, but that's just so difficult when they're not attended to. So then we numb them with food. And so I think that kind of what I'm seeing at the moment is that it's exacerbating these issues because these teens don't have a relationship with themselves. So it's a really big issue, as I know you know, Aisling. So so that's kind of what I'm seeing at the moment.
And are you seeing with environmental and behavioural drivers, are you seeing adolescents coming in with, you know, using energy drinks, you know, drinking a lot of caffeine or energy drinks rather than eating food?
Yeah, they probably don't tell me all about it, to be honest. I do see them usually putting it in the bin on the way into the session. Yeah, I've definitely seen that.
Yeah, yeah. And for sure, we find so many adolescents skipping breakfast. I know my own girls, they've a very early start. They're running out the door. So, you know, we're always saying at least 3 meals a day, at least have some kind of, we've protein drinks that we use here, you know, get something into your system. And that's why they wonder why they're hypoglycemic, you know, later on, and they're craving chocolate or crisps or, you know, huge portions in the evening times as well. So, the third question, so we covered question 1 and question 2. The third question is really about mental health and weight. And another key point is the correlation between weight and mental health. So we know adolescents experiencing weight challenges may also face anxiety, depression, bullying, or social isolation. And then, as you and I've already mentioned, emotional eating as a coping mechanism. And we're able to actually see that straight away when adolescents come into us by our mental weight questionnaire. They answer questions. We're able to see that straight away. And then obviously refer, if need be, to the likes of yourselves. But in your experience, Claire, how often is food actually about emotions are you experiencing rather than hunger for teenagers?
I think it's very often the case, unfortunately. I mean, not unfortunately. I think if there's an issue with eating, that's when those things can become really linked, and we're suddenly preoccupied with food. And I think it's back to what I was saying there about the kind of sense of emptiness or sense of like being outside of ourselves, that the teens are so some teens are so preoccupied with how they look, or preoccupied with the anxiety of just, I don't want to live in my body. I'm so anxious. So what can I control? Okay, I'm going to control the way I look, or maybe I'm going to, you know, for some of us it's cleaning or other people, or, you know, and so it's just another way of dealing with anxiety. And I totally think that they're linked. So food is just kind of a way of coping, or it's going to give me that emotional boost that I need. That's way easier to get than actually looking at my life and making changes that make me feel better in the long run. I'm going to just get a quick fix. Do you know, it's kind of that distraction. It's kind of numbing, and we're all guilty of it, but it's when we create a habit that then it's not really that we need it. It's just we're doing it and we're not thinking about it. And that's when it's so strong. It's hard to break.
Mm-hmm. So basically, we're saying the same thing. It's a combination of, can be a combination of physical and psychological drivers. And food is, as you say, comfort or control. Do you find any trauma involved when you say, you know, talk about comfort eating and stuff? Would you, like, you and I were talking before this, and the trauma of the leaving cert, the junior cert for some, but I'm guessing this time of year, I mean, that can cause a lot of trauma. Are you finding that?
Yeah, I definitely, I mean, I still remember those years myself, and it's everything that comes with it. It's the stress, the kind of living with chronic stress, living on with people constantly. I just was chatting to someone just there now, one of my clients, and just the constant sense of you need to be on high alert all the time. You always need to be thinking and stressing about your leaving cert. That's exhausting. Your body is always like in fight or flight, ready for something bad to happen. Anxiety just breeds in that kind of environment, and nobody's thinking straight then. So it's like, you know, you just go for the easy option. You go for a quick fix. You go for something that's kind of going to give you the boost. You're not going to sit down and think, well, I make a nice, you know, healthy, balanced meal. So yeah, I think trauma, just anything that kind of gets us out of our thinking brain and our calm space and into our reactive, like, just got to keep going, just got to survive brain. That's when we don't really make choices that are good in the big picture, you know?
Yeah. And I've seen, having been through leaving cert with my own girls, I've seen, because of the amount of hours that they have to study, and God love them, they have to put in so much work in order to keep awake. This is where we talked about it earlier, the caffeine kicks in, having cups of coffee to try and keep them awake. And unfortunately, people don't realize that stress, number one, causes physical hunger, and also physiological hunger, and also so too just drinking the caffeine and having these stimulant drinks, because we all know we get the the energy, you know, and we're all gung-ho, and then an hour or two later the energy drops. So, you know, and that's when the blood sugar level drops. Blood sugars drop is when the cravings kick in. So God love them, it's a vicious circle. And I remember, Claire, the best advice that I got when my girls were certainly doing exams was make sure, feed them, just make sure, feed them, support them, and be there for them. And I think it's that simple as to say, even breakfast, going out the door and having a breakfast. So sleep, as I say, you know, we're talking about sleep, then they're probably not sleeping, and teenagers naturally experience circadian rhythm shifts, so they're sleeping far less, also now with lack of sleep, or, as you said at the beginning of the webinar, on their phones. So Claire, from a psychological perspective, what impact do you find does chronic sleep deprivation have on teenagers that you're seeing emotionally and behaviorally?
I think a massive impact. I know myself, I have 2 toddlers at home, and, you know, only this morning my toddler decided he'd sleep 2 hours less just because he had things to do, which is what is the state of life I'm in. But it does mean that you kind of notice, okay, right, it takes a little bit more time. You know, you really have to manage your energy and use it well. And I think when teenagers are operating on kind of a chronic backlog of not enough sleep, because they need more sleep than us, they should really be sleeping in. You know, the school day starts much too early for teenagers. Circadian rhythms, I think you have to really be very careful with sleep hygiene to get it right, because they need more sleep than us. They need 9, maybe 10 hours of sleep to deal with all of the processes that are happening. Their brain is developing at such an intense rate. It's not just hormones, it's the maintenance required to keep the brain running. It's like how they process information, how they emotionally regulate. Sleep impacts all of that. And so if those things are down, if they can't regulate, if they can't keep themselves calm and think in a more rational way, then everything changes. Their ability to make decisions and to not just react totally impulsively, as is their nature as teenagers, it all just goes down. So they're more irritable, they're more anxious, they're exhausted, they withdraw socially. All of those things just add to the mix of having to get through school or get through life in their friend groups. I think sleep is a massive issue. Yeah.
And weight loss injections, certainly we're finding at Motivation, one topic, it's a topic that a lot of parents are asking about right now. And you, I'm sure, have heard about them in the media or from other parents, and it can be confusing. Just to clarify, these medications were originally developed for conditions like diabetes. They work by mimicking a natural hormone in the body called GLP-1, which helps regulate hunger and appetite. So you do feel fuller for longer. So when appetite is reduced, it becomes very important to still eat regularly. Ideally, as I mentioned there, 3 balanced meals a day with enough protein, because otherwise there is a risk of muscle loss, especially in growing teenagers. So this, guys, is really, really important, and I'm passionate about this. Injections are not a first step for teenagers. In Ireland, the guidance is very, very clear, and we'll always start with behavior, which we do on in the clinics, lifestyle, and psychological support. And it can sometimes create a belief that the solution is outside of me, rather than building, you know, long-term self-regulation. So, you know, what is your thoughts on the injection side of things?
I think, I mean, it's like you said, I think weight and kind of managing weight is just one part of our identity that is important to manage. And it's of course we want to feel like we are happy in our bodies, and that's not a problem. I think it's when, like we were talking about earlier, when it becomes the biggest issue. So if the biggest thing that's most important to me is just the way I look, and I'm, you know, and that's the only thing in my life, then if I'm not happy with the way that I look, then, and that's the most important thing to me, then I'm going to be miserable, you know. So it's alongside managing the way that we look. It's I like to think of it as like a little room full of balloons, and they're all the different parts of our life. So there's like our identity, our emotions, our friends, our weight, our image, our personality, spirituality, whatever. if we have lots of those balloons, we have a really full life. You know, you could volunteering, interests. We have a really full life. But when one balloon, and sometimes that's anxiety or depression or whatever, when one balloon becomes the biggest thing, then our life, if that's not right, our life is miserable. And so I think that's how I think about it when I think about the injections and kind of managing our weight. It's just how else am I making sure that my inner world is expansive and rich and full? And how else am I making sure that my outer world is big and interesting to me and I'm involved? And then, of course, yeah, it makes sense that you want to have, you know, like be proud of your body and enjoy it and be healthy, and so I think I would say as long as it's not the only thing going on, I think it's a great thing to look after your body and to feel like, yeah, okay, I can move around in it and be healthy and well. So I don't know if that answers your question, Aisling, but do you know where I'm coming from?
Yeah, 100%. And you and I are on the same page that it really is about balancing at the end of the day. And as we're saying, looking at not just the physical, looking at the psychological as well. I love that analogy of the balloons. Absolutely love that. So the something that's coming to mind while we still have you there, with regard to phones, I'm sure you've had many parents asking you this question. And you're saying, and we all know that unfortunately our adolescents and particularly young teenagers are influenced by influencers and may not be aware of AI or the filtering. So we've talked about body image, which is a huge thing, which we see in the clinics here. What would your advice be to parents watching this or listening to it? What would your advice be with regard to having the conversation around phones? Do you ban the phones? Do you give a certain time, or what do you recommend?
Oh, I recommend having the conversation in the first place. I think some parents can be scared for their teenagers, almost like scared of the anxieties that they might have or scared of the impact they might have. And actually, your teenager just needs you to be a parent and to be firm and to be present and listening, and kind of, you know, you're not saying this is a hard rule and this is the only way it's going to be. You have a teenager, so your boundaries need to start to be negotiated, and they stretch, but they have to be held accountable. So I'm not going to say a script you're going to have with them, but it's okay, this is the boundary that we've had, you're pushing against it, so how can we extend it a little bit? But we need to see that you can be trusted. You know, we need to see that you get that we're extending the boundary, but there's a boundary there for a reason. You know, you don't have to be as scared as we are of what's out there, but you have to listen to us, you know. So I would say being firm is really important, but also I guess I always think having a great relationship with your parent, it gives you evidence that that's how relationships can be, you know. And so that's what I compare when this other friendship I have or this relationship I have with this guy, this doesn't feel real. This doesn't feel like the relationship that I've grown up knowing and I've seen modeled to me. So I think you as a parent really matter. And then also you with your boundaries really matter. That, you know, I think when we get lost in the anxiety and the emotions of our teenagers, we feel it with them, and then we can't see the light. You can't see the wood for the trees. Whereas you need to kind of take a step back, maybe go talk to friends, talk to somebody else, think, okay, what's a good boundary? What am I going to be happy with? And then enter back into the chaos of the teenage world, because it is a bit chaotic and emotional, as it should be. But you're coming in as that calm boundary, and you're saying, I can see the big picture. Your brain doesn't allow you to see that yet. You're not quite there yet. And that's right and good and the way it should be. But I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hold you. I'm going to boundary your life so that you can develop as you should be in a safe way. You know, that's kind of what I would say.
Yeah, absolutely love that. And I think, doesn't it all go back to what we're saying? Have the conversation, have the chat. We'd often have people kind of say, you know, I'm concerned about my daughter. I'm finding wrappers in the bin, or son. You know, they're hiding things. I think they could be bulimic or whatever. And as you say, Claire, they're afraid to have that talk. And the parents themselves, in my experience, also get, as you're saying, so wound up and nervous and whatever, and then they're afraid to have, you know, I hear people say, and it's a very dangerous thing to say, I'm worried about your weight, or are you actually making yourself sick, or like you and I, again, we could talk forever. God, suicide and self-harm is huge as well, and I've heard people try and avoid that conversation. We need to talk. So I love that you say that, and it starts with reassurance and a place of love, and I think it's how you have the chat too. Would you say?
Yeah, 100%. Go for a nice drive, I know, or have something, you know, go for a walk. It doesn't have to be a session, it can just be relaxed. But yeah.
I love the drive one. I heard that advice a long time ago, that either walk and talk or with the driving, because, and you know this too, that adolescents might be inclined to just give you yes and no answers and don't want to talk about it. Whereas if you're in the car, they can't walk away, they can't slam the door. It's a nice time to try and have that conversation. So yeah, I love that. So we have another poll, and the poll is, after what you've heard today, where do you feel your family is right now? Again, we're putting the poll up so we can help you more, and with a view to maybe doing further webinars. And the questions we ask: number one, we understand the issue better but don't know what to do next. We've tried things before but nothing has worked long term. We can see patterns but need structured support. We feel confident to start making changes ourselves, or we're not ready to take action yet. So again, we will share all the poll with you. And then I just wanted to, again, before Claire has to go, just talk about the Motivation Adolescent program and how we can help. And adolescent obesity is complex, but please remember, it's not hopeless. The most important thing is, we've talked about this, identifying the root cause. So as Claire said there, we're looking at, you know, why they're doing it. And we are able to do that through initially our mental weight report and questionnaire that we use in the clinic. And the adolescent, and we use this for adults too, will answer this report once a month. So I think I'm going to share with you a report and show you what it looks like on the screen there. And I was saying to Claire, and for any therapists watching this webinar, listening to it, what I love about this report is that we're able to identify the root cause and the triggers straight away. And then I always recommend, if an adolescent needs further help, we would refer them to the likes of Clare and Zest Life. And I'd always recommend bring the report with you, because the answers that are there straight away. The work is done for you straight away, instead of having weeks and weeks and weeks and weeks of trying to find out what the root cause is. So it benefits all therapists, and it benefits the adolescent and the parents straight away. Communication, or just to look at the report there as well, just to show you, you can see things like the reds are the unhealthy habits and behaviors, pink is normal, blue is healthy. We can see straight away this is an actual adolescent that you're looking at there. We're looking at their overall behavior straight away. Exercise 0, hypoglycemia is an issue. And then we have things like body esteem. So that can be where we might need to refer if particularly we're looking at bulimia or anorexia as an issue. Again, Claire, we can do another webinar on that, and that's where we would refer if there are deeper rooted issues. And then one thing I always look out for, and Claire, you touched on this, relationship with parents. That's a big one. So on our program, what we will actually do is we recommend that the parent also does the program, because a lot of the time we can find as parents, we mightn't have the most healthy habits and behaviors. So there's no point me telling my children to do something if I'm not doing it myself. So we do recommend, if the parent has an issue with weight particularly, that they do the program. They actually would listen to, we have audios and tools to help with the deep-rooted problems. They have an adult version of audios and an adult version of the program. And then the adolescent has an adolescent version. And the beauty, Claire, as we're saying, and I'm so passionate, I know you are too about this, is communication. So it gives an opportunity for parent and adult to talk together. So we have the tools there to help. As I mentioned, we will recommend if further support is needed or therapy, we will refer to the likes of Zest Life. And I obviously highly recommend them because I've used them personally. Our consultants have used the service, and we have referred adolescents in the past, which is great. So we know shame does not work. Quick fixes don't last. Medication alone, as I have said, is not enough and must be medically supervised. So our own medical director here would supervise all that. Mental health must be addressed. Family systems matter. And this is not about creating thin teenagers. It's about creating strong teenagers, regulated teenagers, confident teenagers, and healthy young adults. Even the word thin, Claire, how do you feel about that? I'm always saying to our adolescents, it's healthy weight rather than thin. Do you find your adolescents using the word thin?
I know that's what they're being bombarded with. I know that's what they're seeing. So yeah, I got an emote when you said it. I just feel like, oh, I think it's a dangerous game to have that as your aim. But I think a healthy weight comes with kind of looking after yourself in every way, in a holistic way. So yeah, that would be a healthy, regulated, strong teenager. Sounds much more appealing to me.
Yeah, regulated as well. So strong teenagers, regulated, yeah, absolutely, and confident, healthy young adults. So guys, if you take one thing from today, and myself and Claire have said this, start with connection. Have the conversation, because conversation is the first step. Is there anything else, Claire, that you would like to add, or any advice you have for parents watching this or listening to it?
Well, just when you were talking there, I was thinking, do you know, when we were talking about the drive and why that's good, and I think anything where you're talking to your teen and it's not direct is really good. You know, you might ask your teenager things a lot of the time and get a one-word answer or get I don't know, and teenagers actually really struggle to put words on what they're feeling. So talking, and then you talking, and you maybe kind of giving examples like, oh, I know some teenagers think that, you know, the only way to be happy is skinny, but then I know that other teenagers think like, or I've heard that other parents have said that a teenager that works on this and this and this actually feels happier. You know, so you're kind of talking, but you're giving them different options of how they could feel. That can be really helpful for a teenager, because they literally are, they're not lying, I think, a lot of the time when they say they don't know, they can't put words to it. So just if you are going for that drive, or if you are going to do something with them, just giving them different options of different ways they could be feeling, if you're imagining, can be so helpful for them to say, oh, it's not that anyway, or it's not that, but it's a bit of that. So that's just another thing maybe that might be helpful. But
yeah,
other than
that's really, really helpful, Claire. Thank you. And thank you, Claire, for sharing your knowledge and your expertise today. And I hope, and I know you hope the same, that all parents watching the webinar will get some help from it. And definitely you and I can talk, and maybe as we said, we could spend hours and hours. I know there's so many more topics we could discuss, but thank you so much, Claire, for sharing, and thank you everybody for taking part in the webinar. Take care.
Thanks, Aisling.